verse 1 says, "But it displeased Jonah exceedingly." This is very sad, but it's also part of the story that I was also mentioning regarding what is taught in tradition regarding the previous experience of Jonah. And it's connected to the second coming when it comes to the fact that the second is the fire, the consuming fire. Just like Yahushua is the water of life, the second coming is the fire, is the wrath. Just like Yahushua is mercy, the last is the wrath of Yahweh that is about to be fulfilled in the end time. So that's why when he's basically Jonah went and preached judgment, when he saw mercy, he was displeased because he was expecting something that didn't happen. However, his being displeased had to do with his experience, the fact that he knew that this would happen. So he was kind of angry because when he went away from Yahweh was because he didn't want to go through this again. Meaning he had gone to Israel and had uh, told them to repent. They repented. So Yahweh didn't do anything. And Jonah began to be known as a false prophet. So now that he goes to the nations and this happens again, and Yahweh is merciful as he is always, then he is angry because he realizes that he was right regarding what the outcome would be. And he came to this emotion, basically being angry. Now, I also wanted to say something else. Yeah, I said previously that it was sad because it is sad to see a prophet being angry at Yahweh or being angry at the will of Yahweh, but that's why we had to put ourselves in his shoes and try to understand his situation and why he would be angry. And I already mentioned a couple of those reasons. Um, as I said, it represents the second coming also. So that would be another reason why he became very angry. So, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he became angry. So he prayed to Yahweh and said, "Ah, Yahweh, was not this what I said when I was still in my country? Was not this what I said when I was still in my country?" Interesting that he says in my country, although we know it's Israel. He doesn't say it's Israel because the second coming, he wouldn't be born in Israel. He would be um, born in Babel, as it is represented by the name Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, which is born in Babel. So Yahweh was not this what I said when I was still in my country? Therefore I fled previously to Tarshish, for I know that you are favorable and merciful, Elohim, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness. So he's saying he's angry because Yahweh is good and he was expecting judgment. That's pretty much it. But the fact that he knew that this would happen and ended up happening, it is interesting also that being angry, for instance, in Judaism, is seen as idolatry. And we see why in scriptures. So it's pretty much true. Because when one is angry at a certain circumstance that happens, one is angry because it didn't come out as one expected it to come out. Therefore, one is kind of saying by that anger that everything should happen like you say. And therefore, it is because you are believing to be the one that makes everything happen, as if you were Elohim. So being angry is not being happy with how things go because you were expecting it to go some other way, and therefore you are thinking that you are Elohim. And that is why in Judaism is seen as idolatry, pretty much. So it is, we must be very careful when we get angry to see why are we angry and how angry we are, if it is basically merited that we may be that angry. The scripture says that we can get angry, but not to the point of sinning, right? Because when we get angry and do not control ourselves through the gift that the Spirit gives us, then a spirit of anger can come and control the person and make him do things that he wouldn't do otherwise. So we must be very careful when we start getting angry, not to end up being controlled by that anger and sinning. In this case, what I'm trying to say is that obviously he was doing wrong by being angry at Yahweh, yet he had some points. Yet those points were only of the flesh, of um, the heart, of the emotions that he felt through all of this. So it is understandable as a human for him to go through this. Yet, in the spiritual sense, it was not right for him to get angry at this. He was thinking about himself, about his fame as a false prophet. He was thinking about the fact that once again he said Yahweh said something and then it didn't happen, and now I'm going to be seen as crazy. He was thinking about himself, not about the hundreds and thousands of people that were in Nineveh. So it was selfish, of course. So it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he became angry. So he prayed to Yahweh and said, "Ah, Yahweh, was not this what I said when I was still in my country? Therefore I fled previously to Tarshish." As I already said, Tarshish is believed to be Spain nowadays, and it's interesting how some part of the Yahudim, the Jewish people, went to Spain, and then from Spain were kicked out in 1492 and thrown into America. And that's where we came from. Many of us at least. So therefore I fled previously to Tarshish, for I know that you are favorable and merciful, Elohim. In Hebrew, just a second. Because I know that you are Hanun, favorable, from Hen, favor. And Rahum, and merciful. I found interesting that when it says El Hanun, because you are a mighty one, a favorable mighty one, El Hanun. In the name Hanun, we have Nun, which is the descendant of Joseph, from whom the last would come to show the favor of Yahweh for his chosen few. So we see the name Nun, we also see the name Noah. If we were to turn Chen around, the word Chen, which is favor, if we turn it around, we have Noah, which is Noah. And then it says Chesed Venicham, where it says loving kindness, Chesed. And I continue. It says, "Therefore I fled previously to Tarshish, for I know that you are a favorable and merciful Elohim, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, one who relents from doing harm." So he is saying to Yahweh, I got angry because you were too good. Because I know that you are good. I know that you would have mercy. I knew that all of this would happen because you are good and merciful. So even though he's being selfish and angry because he's being selfish, not understanding what is going on, he still keeps Yahweh in his place, and he still shows Yahweh his honor as Yahweh being favorable, merciful, and abundant in loving kindness, who relents from doing harm. So that's a good thing. It's not like he's insulting the Almighty. So that is to keep in mind, to show how when a servant of Yahweh, a tzaddik, a righteous person, gets angry, even though there may be wrong reasons or selfishness from his part in the flesh, because of the heart that is deceitful above all things, he will have, in the spiritual sense, a reason and wouldn't disrespect the Almighty. And I say all of that because when it comes to the second coming, the last, we see in the book of Isaiah 42 that he will preach in a way to the chosen few and to the world in a different way. And that different way in which he will preach to the world or speak to the world will be taken as harsh. And they will claim that he's a mean or angry person, and not understanding that he represents the wrath of Yahweh, and that is why Yahweh is showing that anger through that person. So even though that person will be angry at the world for what is going on and everything, he will keep Yahweh in his place. I say all of that because, like I said previously, in Judaism, anger is seen as idolatry. If one is angry because things don't go the way one wanted them to go, that is a kind of idolatry. But if the last, his point is for things to go according to the will of Yahweh, so that is not idolatry, because that is an anger, because he wants everybody to follow the true mighty one. He wants everybody to do the right thing. So he's angry about a good thing. There are reasons why Yahweh is angry nowadays, and that is why that will be shown through the two witnesses. That's why from their mouths comes out fire that destroys their enemies. That is not, as some believe, literal fire that will come out of their mouths, is words that will burn their hearts because they are too emotional nowadays. Verse 3 says, "Therefore now, O Yahweh, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." Some would say, this is too much, Jonah. Why would you go to this so far, basically, in your anger? Like I said, this has to do with what is known regarding his life previous to this moment. He had already taken a lot for having said something that didn't happen. So now he's basically saying, I don't want to live in this world, because if I go to my people, they call me a false prophet. If I remain among the nations, they will begin to call me a false prophet from what just happened. So he said, I don't want to be in this world anymore. I already worked for you. I did this here, did the other thing here. Now please just take me away from this world. That's pretty much it. Like I have said also, just like Yahushua lived a good life, a calm life, and then one day everything was turned upside down, and he was going through, well, he went through so much pain that we cannot even understand, for us and to forgive us of our sins, to take the pain that we should have taken for well, yeah, for him, basically, on that cross, and all our sins and diseases and everything. So just like, just a second. Oh, yeah. Just like he would live a calm life and then one day everything turned upside down, when it comes to the last, it is a little bit different, because through his life, it is shown that he would have a pain, like a mental pain, spiritual distress, because of the world and the doctrine and everything that is in the world in which he was put. And then one day comes and will die in Yom Kippur, and hopefully that death will be quick, but after living many years in a certain mental state, which would be kind of similar to depression or stuff like that. I say that, and because of what we see in scriptures, Yitzhak represents the first coming, Yaakov represents the second coming. When it comes to Yitzhak, we don't see him going through any trouble until the moment when his father decides to sacrifice him, and he had to go through a test, and he was willing to be sacrificed, so he passed the test. But when we see the life of Jacob, even though he had a good life when it comes to he never I don't know how to say it, but he didn't go through very well. Jacob lost his son for many years. He thought he was dead, but he wasn't. That's my point. He wasn't dead, but he thought so. So he had a lot of pain in his mind because of that and his heart. Then his daughter was raped. That is something that it did happen. So it was that pain also that he felt right there for that. Then he was away from his parents for a long time. He thought that he was disrespecting them, so he had a lot of mental pain because of that, or spiritual pain because of that. He thought he was disrespecting him, so he thought he was not fulfilling the Torah, so he thought he might go to hell. When he was told that Joseph died, he said, okay, now I know I'm going to hell, because he was told that his 12 children would live and have many more children. So when he was told that one of his children died, he said, yeah, that's it. That's a confirmation that I'm doing things wrong and I'm not going to the place that I was promised. So many things happened to Jacob during his life that kept him in that state. He was basically a slave for Laban, and Laban changed his salary several times. So that is what will happen with the last. Through his life, Yahweh will keep him, Yahweh will provide for him, but he would live in a time of trouble such that he will feel to be away from the Father, to be sinning, to not be fulfilling what he has to, and all of that, until the very end when he actually does. I hope that's clear. I say all of that because of these words that came out of Jonah's mouth. He said, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. We see this happening with Eliyahu, with Jonah, and a couple more prophets. Like I have said, the prophets represent the prophet like Moshe. All prophets speak and testify of Mashiach. So prophets speak of Mashiach, but their lives represent the second coming. So this is something that we would see in the last regarding the way he would feel about this world, about this life, asking Yahweh to take it away. And it is as kind of what we see in the book of Zechariah. In Zechariah 4, we read, actually, if we read Revelation 11, Yahuchanan, or John, is told that the two witnesses are the two olive trees that are next to the menorah that we find in Zechariah 4. So this chapter, according to Revelation 12, has to do with the two witnesses. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just going to read the verse that I was making mention of. Just a second. Yeah. Verse 8. Well, this is very important, so I will read from verse 6. So he answered and said to me, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. So not through an army, as many Jewish people believe, not through physical power, but by my spirit, spiritual power, says Yahweh of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain? Meaning the kingdom of the New World Order, basically. A mountain is a kingdom. And the kingdom that will be ruling the world during the end times, when Zerubbabel appears, meaning the last, the witness like Moshe. Yahweh says, prophesying, who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you shall become a plain. And he shall bring forth the capstone. And, well, depends on the translation, but he shall bring forth the first stone, meaning Yahushua, the cornerstone that was rejected by the builders. So, if Zerubbabel will bring the stone, means that Zerubbabel doesn't represent the stone itself. It means the witness who will testify of the stone, the first of Yahushua HaMashiach. So, who are you, O great mountain? New World Order. Before Zerubbabel, he who was born in Babel, You shall become a plain, a valley, not a kingdom. And he shall bring forth the first stone, Yahushua, Mashiach, with shouts of favor, favor to it, because it is written that in the beginning death reigned, then the law and the prophets, but through Yahushua came favor and the truth. So, favor, favor to it, because through Yahushua we receive favor. So when the last, as Zerubbabel appears preaching of Yahushua as the stone, favor, favor to it, is when this is being fulfilled. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came to me saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple. The hands of Zerubbabel, meaning the last, will begin working through his ministry, his testimony, in order to build the temple of Yahweh stone by stone over the first stone, which is Yahushua. And each of those rocks will be one of the 144,000. So just as he will start it, he will finish it, as a promise of Yahweh, which is amazing promise. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple. His hands shall also finish it. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. For, and this is the verse that I wanted to read, for who has despised the day of small things? For who has despised the day of small things? Those who come to this world and realize that this world isn't enough. And I don't mean that as being ungrateful with the Almighty. I mean by the fact that there is evil in it, that there is injustice, that even though we receive food, there are people who are not, and there are reasons for it that are perfect according to the will of Yahweh. We know that, but still is a world in which there is pain. And if we understand that we are all one, if you are in pain, I am in pain. So we should not be happy with how things are, in the sense that through Yahushua they can and will be changed. So when the witness like Moshe appears, those who have despised the day of small things, those who have despised this world, they will realize who he is and will follow. Just like Jonah despised this world when he said, just take me out. I don't want to be here. And I say all of that because most people become Christians to remain in the world. And I'm not only thinking about the world as in sinning, I mean this reality in which there is still the possibility of sinning, in which there is unrighteousness, evil, and all of that. So, and I use this example, which I know is not, well, in practice will be a little bit different, but just to show what I mean. If a person, and this is sad because it is happening a lot in the United States and many other places when it comes to shootings and all of that, but if people go into a church believe really that death is better, because it is written that to us to live is Mashiach and to die is to win, basically, to be in, and to enter also in his presence. So that's why Paul had an issue with deciding if he wanted to be in this world or out, because being in this world means working for Mashiach in order for once you are out to receive a greater reward. So there are people who go to church but do not want to die. And I understand not wanting somebody that you love to go to the other world, but you yourself, if you believe in Yahweh and the other world, then you should be actually excited about getting to know that world and getting there. I know that the circumstances in which most people go to the other world are not really nice, but my point is, if we really believe that there is life after, then we should be happy about that idea. Yet most people are not. They claim to believe in scriptures, they claim to believe in the other life, but they are always worried about death or about many things that Yahweh told us not to worry about. So those people are easier to fool by the false prophets, because the false prophets come with words of this world, of things of this world. You will receive a new house, you will receive a husband, you will receive money, you will receive this, you will receive that, but all about this world. And people like to hear that because they want to remain in this world and they want to have a house and leave that house to their children and expecting grandchildren and expecting hundreds of years before the scripture actually fulfills. So they are actually hoping for this world to remain, not for his coming. As Yahweh told us in scriptures that we should be awaiting his coming, not awaiting to remain in this world. So all of that is to say that those who come to know and realize that this world isn't the world that Yahweh wants, then they will be open, their eyes will be open to see the two witnesses and will listen and will be part of the new world in the highest place that Yahweh is given, basically. So all of that to explain why Jonah would come to that point and say, I don't want to be in this world, is because he knows there's a better world. That simple. There is a better world. Most people see somebody wanting to go to the other world as just a way out, or seeing it from the way of depression and how people commit suicide and all of that, which obviously is very negative. They are thinking for a way out, but not thinking that they are going to another world. Because if they were actually thinking that there is another world, as we know, they wouldn't commit suicide, because we know that is not the way to enter it. So I hope I'm not being misunderstood. The point is with this verse, for who has despised the day of small things? For these seven rejoice to see. Basically, those who have despised the days of small things rejoice to see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. Actually, the word there is the plummet stone. Basically, these seven, as in the seven congregations that we see in Revelation 2 and 3, those who are the overcomers of each of those will become the chosen few. So these seven rejoice to see the stone line in the hand of Zerubbabel, the last. They are the eyes of Yahweh, which scan to and fro throughout the whole earth. As we know, the eyes of Yahweh are the angels who are above the seven congregations of Revelation that I just mentioned. So I go back to Jonah, and let's see if there are any questions. Celio says, a little off topic, but Psalms 105:8 mentions 1,000 generations. Do you see this 1K years of symbolic of eternity? The word in Hebrew is Aleph in this. Okay, let me go. I'm not sure if I understood you. In Psalm 105:8, it says, he remembers his covenant forever, the word which he commanded for 1,000 generations. And in Hebrew, le'elef dor, for 1,000 generation. Question again. Do you see this 1,000 years? It's not 1,000 years. Oh, you mean maybe like the Shabbat? Because 1,000 generations, basically 1,000 times 70 or 80, or depending, because there are people who believe in a different time for the generation of humans. But for instance, according to Psalms, it is 70 years, the most 80. For several reasons, I have come to believe that we are in the 77th generation from Adam, and that's why the end is coming, as when Yahushua told Keph that he had to forgive his brother even if he came one day 77 times. They translated it as 70 times 7, but we can see those words as 77. And well, I have explained that previously. Hopefully you remember it, so I don't have to go through it. But do you see this? Yeah, you say, do you see this as the 1,000 years or symbolic of eternity? Yeah, it would be symbolic of eternity, because if we are only in the 77th generation, to some a generation is 52 years, so we would be in a higher number of generations, but not much higher. And for some, a generation is 120 years. In that case, we would be even in less generation. I mean, lower number. So 1,000 generations means that he will continue giving us reward and blessing even in eternity for things that us and our parents and our grandparents did in their lives. And also to show that he's blessed, that he is 500 times, Yahweh is 500 times, how should I say it, more merciful, or yeah, favorable than angry or than judgmental, because he remembers the sins of the fathers in their sons until the fourth generation. But when it comes to the blessing, it's till 1,000 generation. So it is amazing to see that, because most people just get focused on, oh, so he punishes the sons for the parents. That's evil, and they don't see that it's only 4 generations. There are reasons for it, and he will break that curse if they repent. They don't see those things. They only focus on, yeah, punishing the sons for his parents, and they don't see that when it comes to the blessing, Yahweh will bless for 1,000 generations. And like I said, that would represent the eternity. Now, Aleph is the first letter of the Aleph Aleph, and Aleph basically in this verse is appearing as 1,000. Le Aleph. Elephim would be 2,000 or higher. So Aleph for 1,000. Now, part of the question was, the word Hebrew is Aleph. Is this a reference to the millennial kingdom? Like I said, I believe it's reference to the blessings that will continue to come to us for eternity, not only in the millennial kingdom. Although I understand what you're saying in the sense that Aleph is 1,000 and Aleph is 1. So 1,000. 1,000 years of reign over the earth. But in those 1,000 years, there won't be 1,000 generations, not even close. So if you see it literal, has to do with eternity. If you see it because of that connection with the letter, yeah, you could see it as the 1,000 years in which we will receive a reward for what we did in the previous 6,000. So I'll continue with the next verse. So verse 3 says, therefore now, O Yahweh, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Take my life from me. Also something that is interesting, and to know that he wasn't being, obviously, I repeat, his anger was going too far. He was being a little bit selfish because of his emotions and all of that. But he was not being to the point of disrespecting, because if his point was to die, he, as others, could have committed suicide. Yet he didn't do that. He just said, Yahweh, I'm tired. Please just take me. Please just, let's be done with this. Just like Eliyahu said it also, I repeat, there are reasons why. So therefore now, O Yahweh, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. This is also interesting. It is better. In Hebrew it says, kitov, it is better. Moti, mechaya. Mechaya. Moti is to die, for me to die. Made chaya, than to live. And I see that important because when Yahushua came to this world and he told his disciples that he had to die, they said, no, why would you do that? Basically, cave. Yet it was better, like he said, it is better for me to die than to live. Because if Yahushua had not been killed, only he would be in the kingdom alone for eternity. So just like he said, a grain has to fall to the earth and die for it to grow and give much fruit. So Yahushua, as the seed of Yahweh, the word of Yahweh, came to this world and was sacrificed for us. He died so that the world would give much fruit. So it was better for him to die than to live. So this that Jonah is saying is actually prophetical. It was better for Mashiach to die for us to live. And then Yahweh resurrected him. So it was not like he was going to remain dead forever. And also happens with the second time, the second coming. It is better for the last to die so that more people can enter than for him to remain alive with the 144,000, enter with the 144,000, and get the many lost. So I hope that is clear. If Yahushua had not died and remained alive, he would be alone in the kingdom for eternity. So it was better for him to die than to live at that moment when he came. And when it comes to the second coming, it is better for him to die than to live, in the sense that it is better for him to die as sacrifice, as we will see as we see in Revelation 11, than to live with 144 and enter the kingdom, because then Yahushua would only be with 144,000 instead of being with millions through the death of the last witness like Moshe. That's why it is better. Yahweh, through his perfect will, realized that it was better for his son, both the only begotten son and then the firstborn, as he made him when they become one. It was better for the only one, Yahushua, and for the firstborn of the 144 to die than to live. Then verse 4 says, then Yahweh said, is it right for you to be angry? Is it right for you to be angry? This is beautiful. Yahweh doesn't punish him right away. Yahweh doesn't complain or yell at him. Yahweh makes a question. That's it. He asks him a question, just like he did with Adam and many other times in scriptures. Through a question, he makes us question ourselves. He makes us realize that we are wrong about what we are thinking and saying. And many times Yahweh comes to us through the heart, through the mind, and tells us, are you doing right now? Is that you're saying right? Just like here. Then Yahweh said, is it right for you to be angry? So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. There he made himself a shelter and sat under it in the shade, till he might see what would become of the city. So this is interesting for several reasons. One, that he saw that nothing happened, yet he still had faith that something would happen. So he went and got himself together. He made a little spot for him to look at Nineveh and see if it would be destroyed. So let me see. So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. All right, there he made himself a shelter and sat under it in the shade. This about the shelter is as the 144,000 will be taken to a set apart place, a prepared place, as a shelter for 3.5 years, as we see, and sat under it in the shade, as it is written in Psalm 91 regarding the shade, regarding us being under the shade of the Shaddai, the Elohim Shaddai. Under its shade, till he might see what would become of the city. And Yahweh Elohim prepared a plant. Here in Hebrew, this plant is called kikayon. Kikayon. And it is unknown. So there are certain translations that put a certain plant, but actually the origin of it is unknown. So they're not really sure about what plant it was. However, when it comes to the Hebrew, let me find the word just a second. Verse 6. So, Kikayon is written with 6 letters, but some are repeated, so I'm not going to be able to show it all here. So I'm going to show it piece by piece. The first 2 syllables one would say would be Kika, but Um, I mean the first four letters, basically the first four letters are this. So this repeat. It would be ki and then ka, and then comes the yon, which is with the yud, the vav, and the nun. And I will say why I believe that's important. All right. So after this word being repeated, oh, these letters being repeated twice, we have here the kuf, which is the only letter that comes down, represents heaven, the eye of the needle, the entrance to heaven. It represents the end times, and it represents someone coming down. So from the heavens came down the hand of Yahweh as the first. And then we have this repeated, meaning once again from the heavens the hand of Yahweh came down. In the Yud, when it comes to the pictograph, the Yud is actually the whole arm with the hand. So it separates in the first and last. The arm is the first, the hand is the last. But the fact that we have this word here of a plant that Yahweh calls to grow is as Yahushua being the word of Yahweh, the root of David, and the last being the branch. So this word representing first and last. First and last. And then after it appears twice, we have two more letters. I already made a mess here. Which would be this. And here, this letter right here is the nun. The last letter of the word is a nun, a final nun. That's why it goes down. Looks like a vav, just longer. So here we have yon, yon. Those are the first three letters of the name Yonah. If I were to put here this, we have Jonah, the name of the prophet, the dove, Yonah. And if we take this, because I already mentioned that it was part of the first four letters, as in the first and last coming to earth, it would be the first and last as the Son of Man coming down as Mashiach, being humble. I said that because the Nun represents Mashiach, represents Son of Nun, represents being humble. And the Vav represents the Son of Man. So what I'm trying to say is that the word Kikayon, which is a plant that no one knows for certain which one it is, represents, the way it is written in Hebrew, the first and second coming of the hand and the arm of Yahweh as the Son of Man, as Mashiach. All of those things we can get from the letters that are part of the word. And I continue. And Yahweh Elohim prepared a plan and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be shade for his head to deliver him from his misery. And just because it's the second time that we see the word shade, he went to look for shade, and Yahweh helped him and gave him an extra shade. Let's go to Psalm 91, which I know is a psalm that most people know. And it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Betzel Shaddai, under the shadow of the Almighty. When Yahweh said that he would make man in his image and likeness, one of the words that was used is connected to shadow, as in saying that he would be made as his shadow. Just like a shadow is a figure of our body because of lack of light. It's interesting that Adam became an image of Mashiach, basically the body of Yahweh, yet was lacking that light, and that's why he sinned by eating of the fruit. So the fact that it's mentioning here the shadow, and in Jonah mentioned it twice, and also when he said the shadow, it mentioned the Shaddai, which is the Almighty. So shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. This verse of Psalm 91 has to do with the first and last. Pretty much is as if we were saying, he who dwells in the secret place of Yahushua, the first, who is at the right hand of the Father, that's why the Most High, Elion, shall abide under the shadow of the last, of the second coming, which is, or who is as the title Shaddai, Almighty. And Shaddai is connected also to the end of times, to the end of the plan of Yahweh. That's why it is second here. And that's why it is connected with shadow, because he comes at the end of times as the son of justice. But because of the sun, there is shadow also. And also because he comes in the end times in which there is darkness in the world. So I say all of that because it is connected to this moment when Yahweh made a plant grow to give shadow to him, to Jonah. So I was in verse 6. And Yahweh Elohim prepared a plant, Kikayon, and made it come up over Yonah, that it might be shade for his head, to deliver him from his misery. To deliver him from his misery. So even though he was angry, Yahweh was merciful with him also, and wanted him to be delivered from his misery, because he was being miserable because of what was happening. That's why Jonah did not want to continue living. And I say that also because if he was doing all things wrong, then for once he wouldn't have been chosen by the Almighty. And second, if he happened to start doing everything wrong afterwards, when he started saying all of those things previously, then Yahweh would not go and deliver him of his misery, meaning that Yahweh also understood what he was going through and wanted to also teach him a lesson through what he's doing here. So Yahweh Elohim prepared a plan and made it come over Jonah, that he might be shade for his head. This connected to how the last will become the shade or the shadow or the image of the sun, just as the sun is the likeness of Yahweh. Also, that's why it says for his head, because we know that the head of the last is Mashiach, and the last is the head of the congregation. Basically, this, I hope nobody's confused, but as I have explained, there are many ways in which we can see what the first and last represent within the congregation, and we can see Yahushua as the soul of the congregation, the last as the head, and the congregation itself as the body. So that it might be shade for his head to deliver him from his misery. So Jonah rejoiced. So Jonah was had great joy. There are several translations here. But as morning dawned, but Jonah was very happy, had great joy for the plant. But as morning dawned, the next day, Elohim prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. The next day, as in the Shabbat, when the Son of Justice already came, and the Shabbat is starting. But as morning dawned the next day, Elohim prepared a worm. Yahweh calls Jacob a worm, because the worm has his power in its mouth. As in, through prayer, we have the power to do things in this reality. So, but as morning dawned the next day, Elohim prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. And it happened when the sun arose that Elohim prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head, so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Once again, second time that he says this. Second time. Like I already said, it represents the first and last. The two times that Yahweh would appear on earth. The first time he said it obviously represented the fact that it was better for Mashiach to die for our sins than for him to live alone in eternity. And now this time that he's saying it has to do with the second coming. The same thing, having to die in order for many to enter other than the few. So it's better for the last to die than to remain alive with 144. So that's why, and it happened when the sun arose, as in the Son of Justice, I repeat. That is the second coming. That is the end of times. That Elohim prepared, and also like I said in the previous chapter, I believe, the first 3 years and a half would be the time of the witnesses preaching, and they will die at the end of those 3 years and a half. But at the end of the first 3 years of their teaching, the world will already be within the millennium, within the last day, within the Shabbat. So in this moment, basically, that is being represented here. When it says, but as morning dawn, that would be from the sixth seal on. But as morning dawn, the next day, Elohim prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. As they are going to kill the two witnesses, for instance, being the congregation the plan, and they will believe that it will be destroyed if they kill the two witnesses. And it happened when the sun arose that Elohim prepared vehement east wind. That wind from the east is called it's called several things, but it's basically a wind that dries, a wind that is hot and therefore dries things and destroys, in a sense, making reference when Yahushua said, when you see the abomination of desolation in the set apart place, go to the mountains. The set apart place, originally, when it comes to geography, was located in the east. So the spirit of the abomination of desolation is represented by an east wind. Basically, wind in Hebrew is ruach, which is the same as spirit. So that's why when he's saying here, this is talking about a spirit that would come in the end times, after they kill the two witnesses, after the Son of Justice has come. So let me see how it is written in Hebrew. Elohim Ruach Kadim. Ruach Kadim, a Ruach from the east, from the origin of the sun, basically. There are several ways to translate that word also. Kadim. And alright. So, and the sun beat on Jonah's head, so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." So the fact that that appears twice on this chapter represents the two times that Yahweh would appear on earth and would have to die for the good of humanity. So it was better for him to die than to live. This is also represented by the fact that when the Israelites came out of Egypt and they were thirsty, Yahweh told Moshe to hit the rock and water would come out. Hitting the rock represented the rock Yahushua dying for our sins in order for us to have water of life at the beginning of the 40 Jubilees after the Israelites came out of Egypt, I repeat. But after the 40 years of going around the desert, the same thing happened. Yet this time Yahweh told Moshe not to hit the stone, the rock. That means that Yahushua did not have to die again. Yet Moshe, as the last, goes and hits the rock. And that's why he dies and doesn't enter the promised land. That means that not Yahushua, but another one, which is his messenger, the witness like Moshe, the second coming, the second manifestation of Yahweh on earth, will come and will have to die 40 jubilees after Yahushua having died. So that's why Moshe hits the rock at the beginning of the 40 years and at the end of the 40 years to represent Yahweh appearing twice and dying twice. Hitting the rock represents the death, the sacrifice of the stone, but one as the cornerstone and one as the capstone. One that starts the building, one that finishes the building. One, Yahweh said, hit it, because that was Mashiach presenting himself to be killed. The other one, Yahweh said, don't do it, but Moshe went and did it, because he represents the Son of Man coming and being killed, while Yahushua remains in the heavens, opening the rest of the seals and things that will happen. So, it is better for me to die than to live. Verse 9. Then Elohim said to Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? Just like he had said previously. But when Jonah said, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live, Yahweh asked him, is it right for you to be angry? Then he's saying, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? Interesting, because there was no plant previously. Just like Yahushua, when he came and died for us, he became the root of that plant. And for that, let me go to Isaiah 11. In Isaiah 11, we read from the verse 1 that it says, there shall come forth a rod from the stem of Yishai. There shall come a shoot, a branch from the stem, from the stalk or the trunk of Yishai. And a branch shall grow out of his roots, and a branch shall be fruitful out of his roots. Here, this verse is talking about the second coming, because as we know, Yahushua said he is the root. So, and a branch shall grow out of his roots means, and the last shall grow out of the first, who came 2,000 years ago. That's why later on we see in verse 10 that it says, and in that day there shall be a root of Yishai. Because nowadays there's already a root, who is Yahushua, in the heavens, the root of David. And Yishai was the father of David, so it's the same. And in that day there shall be a root of Yishai, who shall stand as a banner to the people. That's why Yahushua is in the heavens as a banner to the people. He is the one that makes us a people, a nation. He is our banner, our flag. That's why it says, who shall stand as a banner to the people. He is in the heavens. For the Gentiles shall seek him, and his resting place shall be exalted. He's resting in the heavens. There's no better place than the heavens. So he is being there exalted, and his resting place shall be exalted. That is Isaiah 11:10. So the same chapter, and I'm not going to get into the whole chapter, which is very interesting. The whole chapter speaks of the second coming, time in which the first coming would have already passed, and therefore he would be in the heavens, an exalted place, as a flag for the people, because in Yahushua there is no Yahudi, there is no Greek, for we are all one. So he's a banner now, the root for the branch to give fruit, that branch being the last, and that fruit being the 144,000. So interesting that Yahushua is the word, he is the seed, he is the plant. Basically the congregation would be the plant, because Yahushua is the root. Then the stem came out, then Rome basically cut it through the apostasy. And now in the end times, from that root and that trunk that was cut, a branch will come out and give fruit, something that Satan is not expecting, even though it's written. So going back to Jonah, then Elohim said to Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? As in asking the lads, is it right for you to be angry about the apostasy? About the fact that what Yahweh said would be fulfilled was fulfilled? And he said, "It is right for me to be angry even to death." This is amazing because obviously Yahweh was teaching him a lesson, and uh, the answer for that question was no, it's not right. However, he was so angry at that moment that he couldn't see that. And he even replied to Yahweh, "Yeah, he's right. Yeah, I'm right about it." When it comes to the Hebrew, and it says, "Vayomer Elohim el Yonah," and said Elohim to Yonah. Hahitev, is it good? Chara, that you are so angry. Chara lecha, about the plan. Al hakikayon, once again, about the plan. And the word kikayon can be seen as two coming downs, as Mashiach. That word, and I'm being brief about the way it could be seen, the word, twice the hand of Yahweh came to earth as Mashiach. So here is as if Yahweh was asking, is it right for you to be angry about having to come twice? Is it right for you to be angry about what is happening this second time? Or is it right for you to be angry about the apostasy and about the fact, I repeat, that everything that I said would be fulfilled was fulfilled? Obviously, the prophet shouldn't be angry about that because he knows that just like his prophecy will be fulfilled, the prophecies of all the previous prophets had to be fulfilled. So, and he said, "It is right for me to be angry even to death." I repeat, the second time, the second coming represents the anger of Yahweh, the wrath of Yahweh, the judgment. That's why in this case, he answers, because the previous time, is it right for you to be angry? He didn't answer, because Yahushua the first time is mercy. Yet this time he answers, "It is right for me to be angry, even to death," showing that he has to die, I repeat, as the last. And in Hebrew, Bayomer Heitev Chara li, at Mavet, yeah, till death, even till death. He was ready to die. So, verse 10, and also, this is also important, actually. Let's go to Isaiah 63. In Isaiah 63, we read about the second coming once again. Isaiah is an amazing book regarding the first and second coming, and it's very clear. So, in Isaiah 63, I'm going to read the first 6 verses. Who is this who comes from Edom? Edom in Hebrew is, it means red, but obviously is also the brother of Jacob. And we know that Jacob, in order to take the blessing from Yitzhak, his father, that was going to be given to Esau, his brother, he dressed himself as his brother Esau, or Edom. So this is key, because just like I said that Yitzhak represents the first Yahushua, the last is represented by Jacob, who dressed as Esau or Edom in order to take the blessing. That's why Yahushua said that the second time, the second coming, will be like a thief in the night, because Esau called Jacob a thief for taking his blessing, even though he had bought it from him previously. And when he bought it was the time when he started being called Edom, because he sold his firstborn right for a food that was red, Edom. So there are a lot more things I would like to say regarding that, but I hope it's being clear, because this verse is about the prophet Isaiah, who pretty much is being sent by Yahweh himself. The prophet being surprised of seeing somebody who seems to be very exalted, yet coming from Edom, coming from the enemy of Jacob, well, brother, and also who became an enemy. So who is this who comes from Edom? The prophet is asking. And one would say, who is this who comes in red? We know Yahushua came, when it comes to the spirit, in white, in the sense that he didn't commit any sin. spiritually perfect. Red is connected to sinning. That's why Edom was red. So who is this who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? We see dyed garments showing the importance of Edom as a color. Dyed garments also connecting it to Joseph, who received garments of several colors from his father, showing that it represents the second coming from Joseph. With dyed garments from Bozrah. Bozrah is connected to Yob, and as I have explained, Yob in a sense represents the first coming, in another sense the second coming. In the sense in which it represents the second coming is the fact that he was king of Edom in Bozrah, even though he wasn't an Edomite. So this represents the second coming as Job, who is not an Edomite, but is thought to be. So everybody will claim he's a Gentile, even though he's not, because he comes as a thief in the night. Give me just 1 second. Already with this verse, we see a connection with the last through Jacob, who took from his brother the blessing. Yahushua, who said that he would come as a thief in the night. And Joseph, because of his garments. And Job, because he was king in Bozrah. Then he says, this one who is exalted in his apparel. So he comes as a king. Yahushua came as a Kohen. This one comes as a king. So once again, connected to the last. This one who is exalted in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. Traveling. Yahushua didn't travel. He was in Israel doing his ministry. The last, like I explained earlier, will go through the world as Jonah went through Nineveh. Traveling in the greatness of his strength. And then the answer is, I, who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. I, who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Basically, the last, who comes through righteousness to give what Yahushua left 2,000 years ago, which is salvation. Then he says, verse 2, why is your apparel red? Why is your apparel Edom? Why are you dressed as an Edomite? Part of Edom became the Jewish people of nowadays. Another part became Rome. And that is interesting because Paul, who represents the second coming, just like Keph or Peter represents the first coming, Paul was on paper a Roman, yet he was genetically a Hebrew. That's why the last comes as a Roman, as we see also in Revelation 9, which some people take that verse to say that he is the Antichrist. Just like if they were to read this verse and say, oh, from Edom, that would be the Antichrist. Not understanding that it is Yahweh himself. The prophet himself didn't understand it at first, so one could expect worse from people nowadays. So, why is your apparel red? And your garments like one who treads in the winepress. I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. From the Gentiles no one was with me. No one will accept the last. No one will try to protect them or anything. For I have trodden them in my anger. Anger, as Jonah was angered till death. For I have trodden them in my anger and trampled them in my fury. Their blood is sprinkled upon my garments, and I have stained all my robes. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed has come. The year of my redeemed has come. I looked, but there was no one to help, and I wondered that there was no one to uphold. Therefore my own arm brought salvation for me. That's why the last is saved by the first. Like I already said, the first is the arm, the last is the hand. That's why it says, therefore my own arm brought salvation for me. And my own fury, it sustained me. So just like the mercy of Mashiach sustained him in his coming, the last will be sustained by his fury, his anger. So we are seeing that represented by what Jonah is saying. there are three kinds of prophets, and Jonah is one of those kinds. Three kinds of prophets. There are some prophets who look for the good of the people, so they defend the people before Yahweh. There are other prophets who are jealous of the Father Yahweh, so they are angry at the people and want judgment. And there are other prophets who are in the middle and try to basically fix what is happening between the people and Yahweh. So they work for the good of the people when they talk to Yahweh, but they also basically, I mean, tell the people how it is, yet when they talk to Yahweh, ask for forgiveness of those people. In the case of Jonah, it is clear that he was the kind that has to do with judgment, anger, in which, because of the jealousy that he has for the Father, he is hoping that judgment will come down. Eliyahu, for instance, was one that wanted judgment also, and he was jealous for the Father, as he himself said it. So there are, Yahoo is another example of being in the middle, trying to be for the people and also for Yahweh. I just said that because we see in this verse from Isaiah 63 that it says that his fury sustained him and that he trampled them in my fury. So this is connected to the type of prophecy brought by Jonah, as we are seeing in the book. I have trodden down the peoples in my anger, made them drunk in my fury. Because in the last 7 plagues will be 7 bowls of wrath. Those bowls will be filled with the blood, which is represented by wine. So the fury of Yahweh coming down on the nations will make them drunk, meaning they will not know what is happening. They will not understand it. Made them drunk in my fury and brought down their strength to the earth. Here it's also showing how Yahweh told Yahushua, as we see in Psalm 110. David speaking, he said, Yahweh said to my sovereign, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies as your footstool. Yahweh's throne is the heavens, his footstool is the earth. So once Satan falls to his footstool, to the earth, then that will be fulfilled. And we are seeing it here. And brought down their strength to the earth. If it's bringing down their strength to the earth, means that they are somewhere else. And this regarding that verse that I just mentioned. Even though it also means the kings of this world. So, coming back to Jonah. And he said, it is right for me to be angry even to death. Represented by Isaiah 63. But Yahweh said, you have had pity on the plan for which you have not labored. You have had pity on the plan for which you have not labored, nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night. Came up in a night and perished in a night. So that plan represents 2 days, meaning 2,000 years, confirming what I just said, the apostasy, the congregation. So it is as if the last is angry and wants to destroy, yet Yahweh, through this plan, told him, don't you understand that the love that I have for this creation, for these people, even though they are Gentiles, and I say even though because in the Jewish thought, Gentiles didn't mean much, and unfortunately nowadays still the same when it comes to what they teach in the Talmud and everything. So Yahweh was teaching a Yahudi that Gentiles are also important to him, that therefore he would want them to repent and live, just like Yahweh is about to teach the world the same, and he's going to teach all Jewish people how much Yahweh loves all people who do right, who act righteous, who follow the way of Yahweh, Yahushua, etc. So, you have pity on the plan for which you have not labored, nor made it grow. And actually, the word that is here, very interesting. Let me see in Hebrew, verse 10. And said Yahweh, you you show pity, you show loving kindness to Hakikayon, as in the last understands and loves Mashiach and the whole thing that he did, but he's angry with the congregation as it is right now in the world. So Yahweh is saying, well, you got to take one with the other. If you understand what Yahushua did, why he did it, then you should understand why it has to be done in the end times also for this generation as it is. So he says, you were showing loving kindness to the plant, which came up. Let me see. Yeah, right here. Which came up in the night. Where it says there, which came up in the night, in Hebrew, is saying, Shebim Laila. Haya. Ubin Laila. Abad. And then in another night was destroyed. But the way they are translating it here, I say that because there is a comment. When it says Shebin Laila, it can be translated as had a son or was a son of a night. And that confirms the fact that represents the two comings of the son. Because it says a son in one night and then a son in another night. Or was son of a night and son of another night. As representing two sons, the first and last, who would come to this world, who is as the night, because there is darkness, there is evil. And it would be destroyed after the second son, after the second coming, after the prodigal son. That's why the word that is there when it says, and it perish, is abad, which is the verb from which the name Abaddon comes. And we know Abaddon from Revelation 9 when he comes out of the bottomless pit and becomes basically the image of the beast that is worshipped by the world and will destroy the world as the abomination of desolation. So interesting that after two sons come to this darkness of the world and died, then Abaddon will appear. So came up in the night and perished in the night. Connecting also once again, and actually beautiful, I believe, confirming what I have been saying. Because the Kikayon, the plant, was son of one night and son of another night. And after, Abad came. So, Kikayon represents Ki, the first son coming 2,000 years ago. Ka, the second son coming after those 2,000 years. And then destruction will appear. So I found it very interesting, beautiful, how the word Ben is shown there twice after we see Kikayon as a repetition of two syllables, as in the hand of Yahweh coming down. So, you have pity on the plant for which you have not labored nor made it grow, which came up in the night and perished in the night. And should I not pity Nineveh? And listen to this. That great city, which represents the world of nowadays, in which are more than 120,000 persons. 120,000. Remember, I said that for some people, a generation is 120 years. The reason why that is because that was a generation before David. As we know, Adam lived 930 years. Noah over 600. Then Abraham 175. Then it keeps going down. Moshe had 120. So in Moshe was fulfilled that a generation was 120. But after Moshe, it kept going down until David came and he settled the age of man from 70, at the most 80. And that's what it is nowadays also. So that's what it kept being from David until our time. However, before that, life lasted longer. There are reasons why people believe that Moshe was the reincarnation of Noah, because it was told to Noah that flesh will live 120. Flesh of man would live 120 years. And then Moshe came and he lived 120. So they say that Yahweh was telling Noah that he would come again and the flesh that he would receive would last 120 years, as it happened with Moshe. So they say Moshe is Noah. And it's interesting because the witness like Moshe is the son of man who Yahushua said would come as in the days of Noah. So also when Yahweh told Noah that he would have 120 years to preach, that the end was coming, those 120 years is also taken to understand that the world from Adam until the end would last 120 jubilees. 120 jubilees. Remember that I said that from Yahushua until the end there would be 40 jubilees? Well, 120 is 40 times 3. So 2,000 years plus 2,000 plus 2,000, that is 6,000 years. So Yahweh told Noah that humanity, this reality, would last 6,000 years, 120 jubilees. So now we are seeing this, and Yahweh tells Yonah, should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons? Obviously, he knew the perfect number. He could have said the exact number, yet he said 120 to explain to us, to show us that this represents what he prophesied when speaking to Noah. The book of Yonah is talking of the time of the end times after 120 jubilees from Adam. That's why the number 120 is mentioned here. It represents the end times. Jonah therefore represents the witness like Moshe. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock? So Yahweh is saying that they were so ignorant that they didn't know right from left. What does that mean really? Today's generation, in which they call evil good and good evil, they do not know right from wrong. They do wrong as if it was good. And when they do good, they feel dumb or evil. So this is talking about today's generation, today's people, who, even though most people believe to be so smart because they have a smartphone where they can find most information, even though they know that right hand is this and left is this, when it comes to morality, when it comes to scriptures, they know nothing. Yahweh said that we should go through his way and not turn to right nor left. However, if you don't know what's right and left, you will always be going right or left instead of straight to him. So Yahweh is telling Jonah, these people know nothing. How can I judge them for that which they don't know? Now, in days, when it comes to this interpretation that I just mentioned, people are in a time in which humanity has had so many examples in the past, and all of those examples, like Nineveh, like Sodom and Gomorrah, like at the time of Noah, all of those people have witnessed something that now works as a testimony against this generation. So now this generation has no excuse. All generations previous to ours have had excuses before his throne. Oh, we didn't know. Oh, we didn't know right from left. We didn't know repentance was so good. We didn't know you were the true mighty one, etc. So all generations have had excuses. But we are in the last generation. Therefore, all examples had been given so that we may not have one excuse. We must believe. That's why the door of mercy is about to be shut. Because all examples have been given. They are all written. And that's why Yahushua said that in judgment, Nineveh will stand in judgment against this generation. Because they did not know right and left. When Yahushua came, he said, this is right, this is left. That's it. If you don't like it, well, in 2,000 years, people haven't been liking it. So we are in a time in which they know right and left, yet they rather act as if they didn't. They rather see right as left and left as right. And I hope that's clear. So that confirms how this book is talking about the second coming. Now I'm going to see if there are any questions. So, Yon. This is the name of the plant that I mentioned so much that is found in the book of Jonah. Now, Mary says, is there a connection between Peter, son of Jonah, and the prophet Jonah? Yeah, sure. The fact that Peter represents the first coming, and Yahushua himself said that they would only receive the sign of Jonah. Being Yahushua as Jonah, Peter was then his son. Once he became his disciple, he became his spiritual son, and therefore the one that would represent him as the rock. That's why he was given the name Keph. But it says verse 8 connects with Revelation 7:2. Let's see. And it happened when the sun arose that Elohim prepared a east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head so that he grew faint, that he wished death, and said, better for me to live than to die. And you said that if it was connected to Revelation 7:2, yeah, I believe I mentioned it, right? Not the verse itself, but let me see, Revelation 7:2. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living mighty one. Yeah, that would be the son of the son of righteousness, son of justice, as in we see in Malachi 4:2. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east. Yeah, well, the sun always comes from the east, of course, and that is why the wind of the east is a wind that dries and desolates. That's why I connected it in the negative with the abomination, of course. But in the positive, I mentioned the son of justice, the righteousness that will come through the last. So then I saw another malach, that would be Mikael, ascending from the east, coming from the east, as the son of justice, having the seal of the living Elohim, meaning as the king, because we see in Haggai that Yahweh promises the king, promises Zerubbabel, which I already mentioned previously, and tells him that he will be as the seal of the ring of Yahweh the king. So Yahweh uses the last as Zerubbabel to seal the chosen few on their foreheads with the name of the Father and the Son, as we see in Revelation 7 and Revelation 14. So then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living mighty one, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels. Interesting that it says cried with a loud voice, as I'm pretty sure when Jonah was so angry he was crying out loud. For the four angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea. And that's when a lot of harm will begin to happen to those who are not sealed, as we see. And I said that I kind of mentioned it earlier because in Revelation 6, that was Revelation 7:2. Revelation 6 finishes with the sixth seal. And I said that that verse represented what began to happen during the sixth seal, which is when we change from this millennium to the next, to the Shabbat. I hope that was clear, Maris. Then it says here, so the two witnesses could appear on the scene after a while. What do you mean after a while? After a while of what? The two witnesses will appear soon. They must be ready or teaching already, yet they won't be known in the world, as the world would say globally, until the actual 1260 days start. So it's as Yahushua. Yahushua was already talking to the Pharisees when he was 12 years old, but his ministry officially started when he was 30. So that's what I mean. The two witnesses have to be already speaking about the Almighty and all of that. They have to be prepared. But something will happen that will begin the testimony. Mehdi says the worm is like the apostasy that withered the good doctrine. Yeah, good point. Actually, you remember what I said, that the worm has the power in his mouth? That's why the apostasy has to do with what they say and pray in the name that they invoke, which is that of the false Messiah. Matthew 26:38 is like Jonah, but in sadness instead of anger. Yeah, I'm thinking is when it says this. Then he said to them, okay, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. Oh, yeah, before he was sacrificed. Yeah, that's a good point. When he says exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Pretty close in the way is said to when Jonah said, it is right for me to be angry, even to death. Close in the sense that Yahushua was sorrowful while the last will be angry. And I don't doubt he will go through sorrow also, but mainly anger because of what we saw in Isaiah. But yeah, good point. Yeah, Exodus 33, where Yahweh says that he will be merciful with whom he wants to be merciful, in that regarding the second time. But joy, as the Psalm 45:7 says, although it can be seen as first. Okay, the verse that you were sending, Psalm 45:7, I guess you sent it then. Therefore the Almighty anointed you, your sovereign, with oil of joy more than your companions. Yeah, he's both first and last. However, the fact that he's angry doesn't mean that he cannot be joyful regarding what he's going to receive and regarding his people and the chosen few. So what I said, and you can read Isaiah 42. In Isaiah 42, we seem to see a contradiction, yet it is not a contradiction when we understand that the second coming, the last, comes with two mantles. One mantle regarding the few, whom he will love and preach to and joy with and have joy with. Yet when he goes and talks to the evil of the world, he will be angry. So yeah, he will be joyful, he will be happy. Yet when it's time to speak to the masses who are evil or who are doing evil, it would show that he's angry. Hope that was understood, sister. Then let me see. Celio says Psalm 91 says, "He who hides in the secret place of the Most High." Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you reminded me. I knew that we had seen something. Now let me go and see. So you said regarding that psalm that if that secret place could be as the most set apart place in the temple. Remember, the most set apart place, Kodesh HaKodashim, is where the ark would be. Only the Kohen Gadol would be able to enter there. And within the ark is where the manna or the man would be. So, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Interesting, because in the secret place, the Kodesh HaKodashim, here the word that is being used is secret. That's it. Not Kodesh HaKodashim, just in case. But the Kodesh HaKodashim was a secret place within the temple. Nobody could enter it. And remained in darkness. Because there was no light nor windows. Unless the presence of Yahweh would enter, and then it would enlighten the place. But the fact that it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, as in those who are the chosen few, therefore are the body of Mashiach, who is the Kohen Gadol, can enter the secret place, the Kodesh HaKodashim. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty, will be in the presence of the Almighty. Now, regarding what you asked about that, let me see. The secret place, like the hidden manna in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Well, I think with what I explained already. Hope everybody understood. And so, you're very welcome, guys. And see you next time.